So let's talk a little bit about like that workspace, and let's talk about that shared working environment. So the modern workplace has changed. Like shared spaces have become the integral part of creating a collaborative environment. People are being asked to come back into the office, if even for just, as you mentioned, a few days a week. And there has to be a reason to come back in. So it's a little bit different about just coming back to the office. Why are you coming back into the office? It's definitely more intentional. And it's obviously to work with their teammates. So basically, as companies shift towards open office plans and flexible work arrangements, they're having to face this process of redesign and sort out how technology works in this shared space. So my question for you is, as you're probably thinking, is there a question in there? And there is. What role does Poly envision its products playing in optimizing these shared spaces for enhanced collaboration and productivity?
They're saying, we used to be physically driven by the solutions that we brought out. We had a PBX that was for an office and it served that office. And we needed a conference room solution to serve our conference room needs. And we needed a phone to service us for our office. And I wanted a speakerphone because I had a sitting area. And it was all the physical spaces that drove the needs for technology. Well, what we see today is that as offices get redefined, it's not getting redefined by IT as much as it's getting redefined by HR. And HR is starting to have a very significant input to say, how are we going to structure the physical locations in which our employees work? Then how do we then consider who those employees are and what are the needs of those employees? And what we looked at Poly, in fact, we were well down this path prior to the pandemic, which was trying to identify the personas of those individuals that are working within those areas. And those personas then drive the need for different types of solutions. So kind of coming at it from the other way, it's not as, hey, we got a building here, we got to put a PBX with some phones and a conference room. It's like, hey, who's coming to the office? And how do they collaborate with people who are here? Or how do they collaborate with those who are not there? Or maybe they're getting involved in some type of conferencing solution. Or maybe today I'm coming in and I'm no longer sitting in my office because I don't have an office anymore. Maybe I'm going to the hoteling area. Well, how do I turn this workspace that I'm going into today to be my workspace? And how do I personalize it so my productivity isn't affected because someone sat here yesterday and maybe their needs were very different? So how do I sit down, flash a QR code onto a phone, and that phone becomes my persona and all of what I need. And it also brings with it all of my contacts from my mobile phone. So all of a sudden, because that's who I am. And so the personas are really driving the technology decisions more today than the physical spaces that we did before.
Yeah, I totally agree with Stephen. A couple of things I would add on to that. The personas being incredibly important. The other piece is that as you come into the office, the reason for the office has changed and the nature of what you do has changed in two ways. One is when you do get people into the office, there tends to be a much higher premium now on collaboration. And so we see spaces changing to, it's less about where I do my individual solo work, it's where I need to meet with people. So we see reconfigurations with more huddle rooms, or niches where people can gather and meet, collaborate, whiteboard, ideate, etc. But also because of hybrid, you also need to equip those rooms with the ability to bring in remote participants because now almost every meeting, it's almost a given that every meeting will have a remote participant. And can you make that participant an equal or as close to equal participant in there? And that's where Stephen was talking about meeting equality. But in video solutions, you would do that by giving everyone a square that's the same size. You do that by having, technology in more of these spaces so that there is the opportunity to bring more people in so everyone can be seen and heard. And then the third area that I would just call out is when you do have everyone in the office, and especially where there is an open office, there is still time where you do have to do individual work. You do have to talk to other people. And frankly, open offices are terrible for focus because all you hear are noise and distraction and other conversations. So one of the things that we would recommend highly and consider for anyone in that environment, choose your collaboration platform, get with a fantastic UC service like Ring Central, but then you want devices that are going to give you the ability to reduce the external noise so that it doesn't bleed through everyone's conversation into whoever they're talking to. You need devices that can also drown out, when desired, any of the outdoors, so I don't get distracted when I'm working. So headsets have a role to play there, but phones and video devices also have a role in the way that with technologies like we'll have something called Noise Block AI, where you can filter out noises that are coming outside of my sort of speaking window, and try to take out the non-human, guy moving the plant or moving boxes or playing music. So again, my chaos doesn't have to bleed through your chaos.
That's incredible. And really, from the standpoint of a design approach, I would imagine that your conversations with clients are dealing with these personas, these user stories, office layout, I would imagine as well, and what that flow looks like. Are these conversations quite a bit more detailed than they were, let's say, for example, 4 years ago?
Absolutely. In fact, we're finding that, like Stephen mentioned, it's at one point, a lot of the technology decisions just hid within IT, but now this is really an e-staff level, problem that they're trying to address. And so everyone really wants to figure out, how do I make my workforce most effective? And the business leads, HR leads, e-staff are all now heavily involved. So this really becomes a very strategic discussion point.
And does this play itself out into more of a granular go-to-market plan for implementation, other than we're going to deliver the phones to this particular location and there's going to be some IT people that set it up, that there's probably a higher level of configuration, a higher level of instruction that goes into rolling out the phones and handsets and headsets, and also the conference devices?
Actually, it's the other way. I think that because we've become these entities that aren't overstaffed with IT in every place, and have that technical expertise to help us, what organizations like our Ring Central is trying to do is, we're going to send that phone to site, and all you need to know at that site is just to plug it in. And the better you are at being able to, we have something called zero touch provisioning, right? So we want that customer experience to be flawless, because if I'm in that office and I'm in there, for my 2 or 3 days a week, and the day I go in, it doesn't work, well, all of a sudden my couple of hours I'm going to be there are spent trying to deal with IT, and my productivity is just awful. Or even if you look at it from the provider's perspective, they don't want to have to roll a truck out to every site, because the SMB, which is a large part of this marketplace, wouldn't it be better is I get my phone, I plug it in, and it works. Nobody had to come. I didn't have to have a PhD in some type of tech, to get things working. It should be, the keep it simple type of strategy. So in fact, what you described is the opposite. We need less of that. We need more of simplicity, less of being, configuration type of things for the user base.
That's got to be music to everybody's ears. One less thing to worry about.